So I wanted to ask you this, and this is not just me asking you. I think this is everybody asking you this. Where, where is the full match between Helio Gracie and Kimura? Is it hidden in some Gracie vault? Because it's not, oh, look, this is what happened to him, or he passed out with the Sankaku, or we know what happened, it's written, we read it, we want to see it. This is such a precious and valuable part of our history, and if we want to see it, I'm sure it exists somewhere. I'm sure.
I would personally pay a lot of money that I don't have to watch that whole fight. And let me tell you, this interest of mine for the history of jiu-jitsu is nothing new.
Yeah.
Grandmaster Helio would jokingly call me the philosopher when I was a child.
Yeah.
And every time I went to his house, because he saved all the newspaper articles, he was very, very organized. And he saved all the newspaper articles, the good and the bad, everything that came out in the news about him from the 1930s, from 1931 on, he would cut them and paste them in these huge books that he had, and it's amazing, thousands of articles, and it was all there in his office. And every time I went to sleep over at his house and his ranch, I would spend hours and hours reading that. And he was always surprised. He's like, you're the only person who sits reading these newspapers. And I was always fascinated by history, and particularly the history of jiu-jitsu. And trust me, I've been asking about these tapes, not only. So I would spend hours and hours looking at those books and reading those newspaper articles. And since then, I've been looking for these videos, not only of the fights that happened in the 1950 with Kato and Kimura, but also the fights from the 30s. Because if you look at the pictures, you can see that there were cameras, video cameras, filming those matches. Too? Imagine the Valdemar Santana match. We don't have the 3-hour and 40-minute match. We don't have. And I think I haven't.
Carlson and Santana, that match?
I was talking about Grandmaster Helio against Santana.
Okay.
Carlson versus Santana, we have like
a few minutes on YouTube.
A few minutes.
Yeah.
Have you seen that?
Yes. I saw
Uchimata. See how Carson Gracie was able to do Uchimata and Harai Goshi from the left and from the right without the grip.
Yes. I saw that.
That already gives you a little peek on what jiu-jitsu was before the Sportive Federation. It was more complete, and it was not so focused on the ground. You are a judo practitioner. You know how difficult it is against a slippery opponent who's not wearing a shirt to do Uchimata and Harai Goshi from the left and the right.
Yes.
That was amazing when I saw that. And that made me understand what my father always told me about, because we were inspired by our father to teach this complete style of jiu-jitsu and to focus on the self-defense, because he always told us about how they train in the 50s.
Even if you see the black and white footage, Carlos and Helio, you see they were standing up. He attacks him from behind. He attacks him with the bat. He does like tomonage. When he goes down with the tomonage, he does yujigatame. He does like ogoshi. It's like you said, from top to bottom.
Correct. And that's what I learned. Fortunately, I had this privilege to take private classes my whole life from Grandmaster Helio Gracie. Yeah. And our purpose is to be able to transmit this to our students and all our friends from around the world who are interested in our program. But I'm still looking for those videos. I'm still looking. I haven't given up hope. I do not think that it's hidden with some Gracies. I think they would have released. I think what they have shown. I don't believe in any conspiracy theories in that.
No.
In that sense. I'm not saying that you said that, but I'm just saying some people.
Heather came out and talked about the match. He said like, my grandfather never even thought he would win. It's fine. We know that, but
sure.
Like that match should exist somewhere. That's the point.
I would love to see that.
It's 2 rounds, and if you read the description, you would see Helio tried to do a Uchigari, and then Kimura did Serenage. So you see, there's a lot of stand-up too. It's not just the Osotogari and the stuff on the ground. That's just round 2 basically. But the first round was, and where he goes to sleep, and Kimura doesn't even know that he's asleep, but Helio, as Henry says, is still surviving. It's like we want, all of us, we want to see that.
Yeah, and the story of that is very interesting, of that actual, because I had a conversation with Grandmaster Helio about that few people know. Because the story that he always told me was that his brother Carlos, knowing the prowess of Kimura had just been the champion of Japan a year before. Right, the All Japan, which at the time was the world championship. No one was better in the world than they were. There was no world championship, but that was equivalent to being the best in the world, no question. And Carlos Gracie knew how good Kimura was. And by the way, Helio Gracie had great respect for Kimura, not only for his size, but also for his technique and for his sportsmanship, and how Kimura was not rough with him during the match, how Kimura was very gentle in his approach, very serious in trying to win, but not using any dirty tricks.
Wait, the coffin thing, I will often read like they put a coffin for him, like as they were taunting. Is this part?
Yeah, this is something that you see in football games. This has nothing to do with the Gracies. This is the people, you know, imagine you had 20, 30,000 people in attendance. So some of the fans, they brought this coffin. And
it wasn't his idea.
Whose idea?
Helio Gracie.
Absolutely not.
Oh, okay.
Absolutely not.
I read this account that he saw the coffin and he wanted to give Helio Gracie a concussion. It's like he was taunted and provoked by it. When you read it, you think that Helio Gracie put the coffin.
No. Absolutely not. Helio Gracie would never do that, and he had nothing but respect for Kimura. And if you look at all his interviews before the fight, you will see that. So no, that was something that was brought by the fans. As you can imagine, fans of any sport can do things that are not in line with the ethical practices of martial artists. But no, Helio Gracie would never do that. But Grandmaster Carlos Gracie, before the match, told his brother, I'm only going to allow you to do this match. And Carlos was his mentor and his coach. And he said, and his teacher. And he said, I'm only going to allow you to do this match if you promise to me that when he catches you in a technique, you will tap. And he said, Helio Gracie told him, I give you my word. So he took that promise very seriously, because Carlos knew how Helio could let his arm break, could get choked out and not tap.
It's very strong.
Yes.
If you see his Zeke.
Yes. So Helio Gracie, that was important to him. I promised this to my brother, so I have to keep my promise. So he said, during the match, Kimura applied the scissor lock to my chest. He scissored his legs and he started squeezing my chest. And it was very, very uncomfortable and I couldn't breathe. And I remembered the promise I made to my brother. But then I realized that it wasn't a technical move, that he was just scissoring my chest. So I didn't think that it would mean that I was breaking my promise if I didn't tap.
So it wasn't a Yoko Sankaku.
And then I passed out. So let me complete the story. So he said, and then I passed out. And that's the story I always heard, and that's the story that he believed 100%. But it never made too much sense to me that he would pass out from a scissor to the chest. You know, maybe block the breathing, but that was awkward to me. That was a little bit weird. And then one day, looking at the pictures from the fight, I found this picture, which is actually in the book Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, Helio Gracie's book. You can see that picture there of the moment that Kimura applies this hold, which I wouldn't call it precisely a Yoko Sankaku. It's a classic choke that you can find in especially if you look at Tsunetani Oda's work, you can find this choke. It's a choke.